I am.
Oh, you're
happy
back.
To be back.
She's back.
I know.
Because people were asking in the comments, where's that other chick when they saw you,
I know.
Vika?
Well, that other chick
I thought you were
broke my shoulder. I know I mentioned it before, but if you want to know how bad I broke it, a little trigger warning for those who want to see it.
Yeah, viewer advisory. The following scenes may disturb, upset, make you throw up. I don't know.
This is a picture of my broken shoulder. There
it went.
But it's all better now, so thankfully
That's a relief.
I'm back. And in the meantime, all hell broke loose. Me Too is back again.
Me Too 2.0.
And it's after.
Say that 3 times fast.
Well, I don't think it ever went away.
No, it didn't go away.
You know,
But this time they're after Russell Brand, who is a brilliant and very accomplished comedian turned political person turned sort of guru, and he's now being called an influencer. He's got a massive channel on YouTube, which was almost immediately demonetized.
Well, it has been
Correct.
demonetized, yeah.
Yep. Yeah, look, you know, I think it's an interesting example of things we've been talking about from the beginning of this podcast, and we're not expressing opinions one way or the other. The investigation that was done by the journalist and the media appears to be fairly thorough, but that is just simply a media investigation. If this leads to criminal charges, it'll play out. But I think what's important to talk about is something we've seen on some other interviews, is just how easy it is, especially for people with notoriety, where you have historical allegations come out, people decide to speak to the media rather than going first to the police and talking about their experience and the violence that they experienced, and then that going viral on social media and legacy media, and then the person is, you know, they're losing their reputation is gone, they're losing their livelihood, they're canceled.
Well, and they're polluting a potential jury pool in advance.
Oh, you mean that they should have some due process?
Yeah, imagine.
Why?
Well, there's a few elements here that I find intriguing. One, there's 4 complainants at the moment. There may be more that come forward, whatever.
Yeah.
So there's a presumption.
Depending on the book deals.
So there's a presumption that if there's more than one complainant, then it must be true.
Right.
And that is fallacious, especially when the media is involved. And they say these women had nothing to... So here's one of the things I find curious. These women didn't even know each other. How did they all happen to go to the media? The media was obviously searching, right? And so here's the thing with Russell Brand. I read an article saying he's hiding in plain sight. Russell Brand was named Shagger of the Year 3 times in a row by The Sun in the UK.
I'm never even a runner-up for that.
He's got 2 books called Bookie Wook 1 and I think Bookie Wook 2. He has never hidden anything.
No, he's always been out in the open about...
Yeah, and his sexuality was a big part of his fame and his act. And he's a comedian.
Right.
And we have to keep that in mind, too.
Exactly.
Because I know there's a clip out there where he says something like, oh, I raped a woman once. And
Well,
what I
but that's
thought was,
comedy.
Yeah.
I know. And what I thought is, well, he only said 1. He's got 4 complaints. But anyway, like it doesn't mean anything because he's a comedian and he says things like that. And then there's the follow-up. And, of course, the follow-up's not appearing. And you know, people got really sexual with Russell Brand on interviews that I've watched as well. And I thought he handled it really well. And that's just, there's a big difference between an average person and a person in the public life, especially when, you know, that's been a big part of his act is his sexuality.
He's got a shtick going on.
Yeah, I mean, you know, again, on its face, these are serious, compelling allegations. There are some video clips that are circulating on social media of his interactions with people that you can take, whether it's, you know, indicative of how he conducted himself or not. But what I find so disturbing about this, and you know, frankly, Diana, we see this with clients that we represent too, who might not just be that famous, because he's pretty famous, but can be, you know, prominent. They may have a prominent business, and then there's a press release done, and there's a lot of social media and fallout for people who are not even close to that level of notoriety. But what happens is the vitriol, the absolute vitriol that then unfolds about somebody like Russell Brand or somebody who we represent, where there are horrible comments that come out condemning this individual and that they are absolutely guilty. And we've seen this in some of the talk shows that's been going on with respect to Brand, where again we come back to the exact same premise that we have to believe these women, and you must believe women, and therefore, he's guilty in the court of public opinion. But it's the vitriol that goes with it as well. So, we've said countless times on this podcast that there should not be a difference in evidence because of the nature of an offense or the gender of a complainant, that due process should not go out the window, that there is something for proof beyond a reasonable doubt, and that these are allegations and they have to be tested in a court of law. I mean, not make it to a court of law because these people chose to speak to the media first.
And that was an interesting comment that I came across while I was watching some coverage of this too, where a woman, she might have been a lawyer, I can't recall, but she said, it's not stunning and brave to go to the media, right? It's stunning and brave to go to the police and make a proper report. And
that was on the Pierce Morgan
show, which I thought it was a really balanced panel. I thought that was really well done.
Yeah, they had a very good, healthy debate on that one, and everybody has their perspectives. But yeah, she made an extremely good point. I mean, some people may find that very offensive, but I always find it, I agree with that individual that, when your first stop is to the media, and then the premise to sort of support that is that, well, the criminal justice system is not very welcoming. That's a bunk, because we have watched hundreds, if not thousands, of interviews of complainants, and police do a pretty good job.
And incredible supports in place.
Yeah,
I had one the other week where the 8-year-old complainant, they have the support dog, they have a separate support worker.
But let's talk an adult female. I mean, you've got a special room. Yes. You have special investigators. So to try and say that it's easier to come out in the media and be treated better than you would be treated by specialized police officers who conduct these interviews, I think is bullshit.
And I think this is an important point, because women are being told that they shouldn't even bother going to police sometimes. But the reality is you're treated very fairly and very well by police. And then they complain that more women don't make complaints to police. Well, the reason they're not doing that is because you're telling them not to go there.
They're
right?
creating it.
I know. It's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. Right. But the reality is, as we see, is complainants are treated very fairly. The problem that I see is that as soon as charges are laid, there's no real investigation on behalf of investigating the truth of the allegations. And so as soon as charges are laid, they're presumed to be guilty, because why would the police lay charges?
Well, we know that when an investigation unfolds, the investigation is really taking a statement from a complainant, maybe collecting a few text messages or communications that the complainant provides later on. Maybe there might be a disclosure witness to interview, but there's not much done beyond that. Right. But and that's our complaint about investigations, that in fact it should come from an unbiased, objective point to be sensitive and caring and open and helpful to a complainant to come forward. But then a critical eye should be used, and there should be an investigation.
An ongoing investigation.
Ongoing investigation. But leaving that aside, it is the notion that somehow we need this type of investigative journalism to uncover all of these types of allegations, and that there's this low threshold for conviction, which I think there was some stupid statistic that was said 1%, which is absolutely not correct. At least not correct in Canada.
0.001.
Not correct in Canada. Not correct in the United States. Absolutely not correct.
Conviction rates when somebody goes to trial is like around 50%.
Yeah, or maybe a bit higher.
It fluctuates between like 48 to 49 to up to 52, 53.
And there could be good reason why it's not a higher number, because you have allegations.
Because there's automatic charging policies.
Yeah, and so, I think what's so troubling about this, again, is, the hot debate that goes on in social media that will never disappear, the things that are posted on the internet, the absolute vitriol, the drawing of boundaries, and the lack of some sort of consensus to say, look, if these are real, legitimate allegations, they've come out, hopefully they'll be investigated. If they're investigated, it can lead to charges, can lead to a trial, and there will be a fair trial. And then if somebody's found guilty, they'll be found guilty. But we just skip all of that and go right to the person is absolutely guilty.
They love gossip, but they love to judge other people, and that's just the way social media works. I think
it's more than that. It's more than that.
It's an anger machine. It's social media.
Right. Well, that's a good point, because our society thrives, and politicians do this too, on conflict, on two things: conflict, instilling fear, and telling you that
The sky is falling.
Yeah, that everything is just falling apart. It's not the way it should be. And so you're right. This is, fear-mongering and anger producing.
Fear and anger sells.
But what I see is just a level of almost hatred that's just unleashed without knowing facts.
I know. Well, I've mentioned to you before a horrendous case I worked on where one guy committed suicide. They celebrated online, and then another guy disappeared off of their list, and they actually were posting online, they hope he killed himself.
Yeah,
that's the level of vitriol and the level
crazy.
of anger that gets brought out by people when they go online. They lose their humanity and they lose their perspective and reality, and that's why it's so important that we're doing what we're doing.
And they're unleashing
to remind people.
They're unleashing their baggage on these people.
But it's important to remind people about how long did it take us to develop the legal system with the rules we have that some people don't like. But how long did it take us to get a legal system which isn't perfect?
Mm-hmm. Well over 1,000 years.
Well over.
Right? And there was a lot of bad things that happened in the meantime. People being tortured to get confessions and things like that. And, people still get wrongfully convicted all the time. We know that from the Innocence Project.
We will never have a perfect system. Right. That is impossible. But what we have in common law countries, especially Canada, I think, as close to the best system you can possibly have, in my opinion. And I think you share that opinion. There's flaws with it and there are problems, but it is the best that we have. But we can make it better.
What do we see online? Every time somebody gets a fair trial and if they get acquitted, what we see online is people
he's probably guilty.
Disparaging.
Right.
Well, they got off.
He got off.
That some lawyer, when I had that Twitter tirade against me
her.
Or the ex. No, but there was a lawyer who said,
How do you sleep at night?
How do you sleep at night?
I don't have... What was that Matthew McConaughey
with
line?
A pillow, with a nice pillow where I put my leg over.
I don't have coffee after 7 or
right,
something.
That's how he sleeps.
But
one arm over my head.
But a lawyer, another lawyer had said,
over my head now,
just because somebody's found guilty, you should not be equating that with innocence. And I found that very dangerous for a lawyer to be saying, because under the law, a not guilty verdict is consistent with innocence. And for us to, and we spoke about this on episodes before, do not qualify acquittals. Right. And we have this apology for acquittals, and it bothers the hell out of me.
I'm so sorry you had to acquit you. It's insane.
It's the fear of
offending somebody,
offending people, and it's like we got to stick to the principles of our system, and
the reality is if you're not convicted, you're presumed innocent again.
Right.
Yeah,
that's the reality.
But they don't want. But the public doesn't want to accept that.
But if we go back to Russell Brand again, what do we know from what we've seen in the past? Can this man get a fair trial if he goes to court?
I don't see it. Not in the UK.
How?
Shagger of the Year 3 times in a row.
I mean, Kevin Spacey got a fair trial. Yeah. I mean, again, UK is like us. I mean, it's we're not going to have cameras in the courtroom. Right. Jurors aren't going to be interviewed. But there were several accusers, and he testified, and there was a finding of not guilty, and you have to assume that that's a court composed of your fellow citizens who came to a conclusion of not guilty. So I think that
system worked.
That system worked. The problem with him is he's been attacking politicians on his podcast. He's been delving into areas he hadn't before. He has been controversial in that respect. He's been attacking the
entire system.
He's been attacking the system. Right. His comedy is interesting. His comedy is cutting. And recently he's gone back. He's
very articulate.
He's extremely articulate. He's gone back to his roots of comedy. And so how does somebody who has that much notoriety and that much controversy, which makes him an interesting comedian, makes him an interesting podcaster. A clever
comedian. This is why I liked him. He's an intelligent comedian.
A lot of the good comedians are really super intelligent. I mean, they are next level smart. Right. Yeah. I mean, when you think about the writing that goes into good comedy.
Ricky Gervais.
Many others. I mean, Bill Burr, right. Louis C.K. I love. I mean, right. The writing and the thinking and the commentary on human nature and everything is really next level, in my opinion. But for someone like Russell Brand in the UK, given his notoriety and this type of shit that comes out, it makes it difficult to have any type of a fair jury trial.
Yeah, well, you mentioned Bill Burr, and I remember watching. I've watched him for so many specials or whatever, and little bits that are online. But he had this one point that he made about the red wine ladies, and he said he doesn't go out after a show anymore because he would go out and these red wine ladies would come up and start fondling his genitals and stuff like that, and sexually assaulted him. He was like, "There's something about comedy that really turns people on," so he just stopped going out and socializing afterwards. Can you imagine Russell Brand and how many people were doing that with him? Like, he's not complaining.
Like a rock star, yeah.
Right, but one thing I'd say about when these allegations came out, he's not going to be quiet about this. He's already done a video.
But he came
adamantly denying it. And his commentary, I think, was actually really quite phrased. Like we said, he's very articulate, and I think this is one of the things when lawyers are helping clients who are very public people, that how social media is handled is really important. And in the past, lawyers would just come out and make a lawyer statement, and nobody listened to it because it was just a lawyer statement, right? My client adamantly denies, the allegations. We're going to deal with this in a court of law.
Court of law, yeah.
Right? And then people go, oh, that sounds like he's guilty because they didn't actually make a proper response. But then you can go really wrong if you say sorry ever for anything.
Oh God, never apologize.
Well, no, if you're going down that road, then it's problematic. And there's a good reason.
I'm sorry I was promiscuous. If you use the word sorry once, all he says is I was really promiscuous. He didn't say I'm sorry I was promiscuous.
Right.
There's a good reason that lawyers traditionally in our system don't litigate in the media and make if they make any comments, it's limited. But he came out and said, I didn't hide the fact that I was promiscuous. I didn't hide the fact that, this was sort of my lifestyle. But everything, according to him, was consensual. Again, we're not making any commentary. These may be valid allegations. It could be proved beyond a reasonable doubt. They may absolutely be real victims. We're not saying they're not. What we're talking about is the disgusting process of how it just plays out. And it's like, I just don't know why.
And to be demonetized. This is his livelihood. Demonetized within days. That's precisely what they're after.
And the label of
cut off his funding.
Well, with all due respect, if you're a family law firm and you represent particular people, parental alienation, and you want to advertise on certain social media, their content policies will not allow you to advertise that wording. Right. If you want to advertise certain wording on certain search engines that are not offensive but don't accord with their policies, that advertising will not be allowed. So we are censored left, right, and center.
One thing really bothers me, though, the fact that the immediate target in all of these cases is money. They immediately want all of their money cut off. Course. So at a time where
he needs the
they need the money the most to hire proper defense lawyers to do the research, these could be people he doesn't even know who they are. He's going to have to maybe investigate and find out who they are. Most likely somebody who brags about, he's Shagger of the Year for 3 years in a row. Right. He's not going to still have all those messages, right? So right at a time when somebody needs money, the very first target is cut off
financial
money.
Yeah, it's a playbook move, totally.
Well, let's talk about this for a second. I mean, if it's a free market, corporations are corporations. They have shareholders. They have, if they're a public company, so they have rights to have policies and decide what they want to do. The problem is we live in this cancel culture because if you are a corporation and you are then funding, a podcast, or
advertisers don't want their ads
there's a clothing line associated with them. They're going to lose market share as a result of it, and that's because of the vitriol that comes out. That we just don't want to just take a step back and go, okay, these are pretty serious allegations. They're compelling on its face. There's been a lot of work done by the investigative journalist, but let's see how this plays out, and let's see where this goes. And that is just not our approach. This is a perfect explosion of all of that vitriol and hatred and bad things that come out, and it just is such a shame.
You don't have to be a celebrity. I have a 20-something-year-old client, works at a bank, charged with sexual assault. Case is going to take ages to be dealt with at trial. They fired him.
Yeah.
And when he asked them, why are you firing me? Did I do something? Oh, well, you violated our code of conduct
policy.
And he's like, "What? I'm innocent.
That's what I saw. I think with YouTube,
I had an analyst.
YouTube
at
said
bank.
There was a conduct policy that they had.
Right.
Yeah, they all do. So I had an analyst at a bank who'd been there for 25 years and gone in a second, and couldn't get employment, took a job at a convenience store.
Wow.
So this is the environment that we live in.
I know somebody who had a really high-profile career, and I'm not going to name him. He ended up laying bricks because he couldn't get
employment
anywhere else, and he was extremely well known in a high-profile industry, and
nothing surprises me. We live in a world of extremes. We live in a world of harsh opinions. We live in a world of alternative facts where who knows what the truth is. So, why should this surprise us, compared to all the other craziness which is going on in the world? That said, the solution to this should be easy. It should be take a step back and let's see how this plays out.
Take a breath.
I remember my late great friend Christy Blatchford. Actually, she wrote an article once saying, "Is it better for somebody?"
Outstanding journalist.
I know, I miss her so much. Is it better for somebody to get a trial or to be just tried on social media? Because if you get a trial, you get a fair trial.
Right.
To the best of our ability. But if you're only tried on social media and you never actually get to court, what if none of them go to the police? What if there's never a charge laid and he's only got the ability to fight in social media?
Or just a civil action.
It's true, it could be a civil action. They're all anonymous right now.
Right, because we've seen that play out with Cosby. Leaving aside the merits of the allegations, because there's a lot of bad.
Without getting into that,
there was a lot of bad about his discoveries. But that said, you can't. The choice can be to go down the road of civil litigation, claim damages, not go to the police. We'll have to see where this goes.
Right. Yeah.
But
I'll be definitely watching it. I'm a big Russell Brand fan of his work. Right?
I was listening to his podcast. I
don't know what he's like as a person, but I'm a big fan of his work. So
I was listening to his podcast, and some of his comedy I find very entertaining, but we reserve judgment. These may be real victims. This may be awful. Just before you do that, I just wish, my wish, as we're in the fall now, we get closer to the holiday season, whether you're celebrating Christmas or Hanukkah or anything else. I wish we could just all take a deep breath and let certain things play out. I just wish we could do that.
Yeah, imagine.
And
just
imagine.
Wait for that to happen.
So we're going to follow this because I think
I was just canceled there.
No, you bought them.
Oh, yeah, no, it's Michael's cushion.
No, I thought she was canceling me for some reason.
As we're going to follow this because I find it interesting to see where this goes and if a fair trial happens. Leaving that aside, if it goes that far.
I'm so happy to be back. You know what?
Just don't break anything.
Don't break anything on the podcast.
I could put both my hands behind my head.
That's pretty good.
I couldn't even lift my hand up this high.
10 to 12 weeks ago, that wasn't happening.
No, it wasn't.
It took 3 months. It took. All right.
Well, as you get older, we don't heal easy. That's for sure.
Yeah, I try not to keep track of time anyway.
That's hence the watch.
It could have been last week. Who knows? I heal fast.
Well, thank you everybody for watching. This was a short one, but it hits sort of a nerve with us, so that's why we raised it. So again, if you like our podcast, please like, share, subscribe, comment, hit notification. I'm getting good at this.
Yes, you are. And you don't need the pillow.
I know. At the beginning, like 2 years ago, I was like, blah, blah, I couldn't say it properly. But, again, keep sending us your messages because, we get people communicating with us and we get really great dialogue. On the last podcast, it dropped, somebody joined us from Australia, had some really great engagement.
Show your watch.
And this is amazing. We've already covered the 41 millimeter Tudor with the burgundy bezel. Right. We'll wear a different one for the next time.
Yeah.
And I love the comments about watches.
So it's great.
Yeah, share your watches with us.
Yeah, there's one of our followers, Chris, who I don't have his message right now. Every so often he sends me pictures of what he's wearing. So we love the connection with our viewers. So thank you very much. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
And let's clink our glasses.
Yeah.
Clink our. Yeah.
We should have had tea or something.
We should have.
Good night, everybody.
I got Mickey.